I would love to go out there. And you know, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, 40 something years ago, he was flown out to some base. And then they went to another location in Antarctica. There was this massive underground base. He said it was several hundred feet up. And he said there was one spot that was so deep, they didn't even know how far down it went.
I've been able to locate the location of 6 different under ice bases. There's a big distinguishing point to be made here. Antarctica on the polar plateau over East Antarctica is 2 miles, sometimes 2.5 miles thick of just ice. And Antarctica is also the most volcanically active continent in the world. There are 93 active volcanoes in Antarctica. So the propensity of creating under ice domes through geothermal activity and warming is not only a possibility, it's a reality. And they've done scans of the area and found these massive domes, including the biggest one over Lake Vostok, which is a freshwater lake in East Antarctica. It's about the size of Lake Ontario. It's one of the top 10 largest freshwater lakes in the world that nobody ever knows about, but it's covered with 2 miles of ice and then this dome over the top of it. And that lake never freezes, so it must be getting heated with geothermal activity.
If you want to take the cutting edge nutritional supplements, there's different products that I take also. But as far as vitamins and minerals and essential amino acids and like anti-aging stuff, this stuff is amazing. So you can actually get yours if you haven't ordered it yet. And if you haven't, I don't know what the heck you're waiting for, because this stuff is absolutely incredible. Read the reviews, like 5-star reviews across the board. Athletes, people from all ages, all walks of life, and it's awesome. So go to boomerboost.com right now. Click the link in the video description box specific for extra discounts. Use the code REX. You're going to get an additional $5 off your order. Use that for the coupon code, but click the link. And for a limited time, they've got 25% off their probiotics, their collagen, their vitamin C, and free shipping in the US of orders of $37 or more. So stack the discounts, read the reviews, get some, and let's get back to the podcast right now. Boomer Boost!
Yahoo! On one of the Argentinian bases, they said that there was a sighting at another one of the bases just a few weeks prior of some UFO and orb activity. And they were talking about it inter-base banter among themselves. And we got the guy to tell us about it. And we also found out that there's no-fly zones in Antarctica, including the biggest one right near the South Pole. Now, the cover story is, well, they're doing these very sensitive weather monitoring tests, and the fumes from a plane would throw things off. But there are no planes really flying there. Only in the summer months, occasionally you'll have a plane set down, and they can't go over this one area, which is even beyond where they're doing the ice cube experiments. And that's where I think the hole in the ice is that Admiral Byrd discovered on his first flyover of the South Pole in the 1920s. And then he went back at the beginning of Operation High Jump, according to his diary that's still a published work, that he flew down into it. And that's when he met some people down there that had Nazi insignia on UFOs that he called Flugerods, and then was asked to meet with a figure called the Master in the domain of the Ariani. Okay, here is the Kohnen base.
There we go.
In its entirety. So now you can see the airstrip with the snowmobile track and that orange-like substance. That must be the door going down into it.
Yeah.
And then some footpaths around it, and another little bulging protrusion where there could be another part of this giant craft. And that's what the remote viewers at Farsight Institute said was this massive machine under the ice and this big grill
All right. Hey, everybody. How the heck are you? It is a fantastic day today here in Southern Colorado. Or wait, is it Antarctica? Speaking of Antarctica, look who it is, Brad Olsen, the man, the myth, the legend. And we're going to talk about it. So, Brad reached out to me the other day and he's like, Rex, I got some really cool info I want to share. And he shared it with me. And I was like, oh, we got to talk about this on YouTube. This is way too cool. So, first of all, before we get into that, though, what have you been up to, man? It's good to see you.
Hey, Rex, I'm doing great. I'm out here in on my ranch. Just sprung for Burning Man tickets yesterday and heading out to the playa, which is just down the street from where I'm at. So enjoying my summer out here in Northwest Nevada.
Oh, so when is Burning Man?
Well, it'll start a week from yesterday. So
Oh,
people start heading out to the playa this weekend.
okay. Okay. And
Oh,
that's like the desert?
yep, yep. It's called the Black Rock Desert. This will be my 18th burn. Started 29 years ago in 1995. Went every year until 2012, and took a break. And then I was out there last year for the mud burn, and that was quite interesting. This year looks like perfect weather, but so many people are chickening out or feeling that it's going to be a bad weather year that there is a glut of tickets for the very first time ever, and got mine for $200 plus a nominal shipping fee. It's just incredible. Two-thirds off. If anybody wants to go, now is the time to pick up tickets. I think they might even be giving tickets away too
Oh,
if you get to the right place.
dude, I'll do podcasts for a ticket. Reminds me of the Grateful Dead days, right out in the parking lot. You know, you're like, "Come on, man, help me out. I need a ticket." The good old days.
You
Um,
ride your bike out there, Rex. So you've been doing some incredible bike rides, man. I'm impressed. Going to
Thanks.
top mountains and 50, 100-mile bike ride days. That's good workout.
Checks in the mail, bro. I got to stay busy because I'm like a caged animal. But anyway, so I want to hear about your most amazing adventures and like where should we start? You said, first of all, I want to give a shout out just because some people might not have seen your books. Now, if they haven't, they probably haven't been watching Leak Project very long. But anyway, I just want to do a quick promo. And I've got your books, and they're awesome. They're quick reads, and like you go back and you can read and you can reference. So you might forget something like, okay, yeah, Brad talked about that chapter 12. Let's go jump on to chapter 12. Beyond Esoteric. This is a great book, Escaping Prison Planet. This will kind of open up your eyes to a whole new world of opportunities, you could say. Future Esoteric. And then you also did some books a few years ago on sacred places. That was actually before you got into more of the esoteric stuff, right?
Yeah, I started my career as a travel writer. In fact, that World Stompers there, still in print. It is my very first book. Came out also about 30 years ago. That's how long I've been in publishing. But right around the advent of the internet, uh, late 1990s, people were able to get online and start to make their own itinerary based on information they could get from the internet. So they didn't really need travel guides as much anymore. And the travel book aisle in Barnes and Noble, which was once 2 or 3 aisles long, is now today about a half an aisle. So it was a shrinking market share of books, which didn't really collapse like magazines or newspapers in 2000 with the advent of the internet. It's held on, and now we have ebooks and also audiobooks. But I was kind of going through a soul searching moment about 15 years ago and realizing travel publishing ain't what it used to be. And what do I really want to do if I want to stay in this field? And it's the thing you cover on the Leak Project, all of these obscure paranormal UFO related subjects, traveling to faraway locations like Antarctica and seeing if there's a story there that can be reported and put in books or talk about in interviews. So that's how I got going.
Well, that's pretty cool, man. There's definitely stories to tell about Antarctica. I got to share this with you because I thought this was kind of funny. So I was at the Crestone Energy Fair a year ago, I think it was, and I had my tinfoil hats out, you know, my 5G blocking hats and stuff, and I'm like, oh, most of the people I've met so far have been pretty normal. This is pretty cool. And this one guy walks up with his coworker, and they work for some EMT, right? Like not firefighters, but medics kind of guys. I see them walking up. I'm like, oh, these guys look pretty cool. I'll bet you they're pretty normal. And this guy the one guy stayed back. The other guy walked up to me and he started talking about Antarctica. And he's like, and then I told him I have friends that have been there and he didn't believe me. And then he started getting real confrontational with me. And then he started telling me how the earth was flat. And then and then I'm like, no, dude, I really have friends that have been there. And he's like, no, you don't. How come all I ever see is penguins? That's all I ever see. And I'm like, okay, I literally told him, I said, have a nice day. I like, it got really weird. I thought he was going to start punching me or something because I didn't believe him that the earth was flat. He's like, you're the one selling tinfoil hats. And I'm like, whoa, it was so crazy, dude. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought you would appreciate that because you were one of the people I was talking about, you and Eric. And anyway, so yeah.
Well, yeah, the flat earthers, I just refuse to debate them anymore because it's just a circular
surprise.
Yes.
discussion and as much evidence as I want to provide, including showing pictures right off my cell phone walking on terra firma on the continental landmass. But to flat earthers, they're in denial that the continent even exists because they say it's just a ice wall, which is misinterpreted as the ice shelves. And I've seen those ice shelves wrecks and they're 30 stories tall and it does look like an ice wall, but that's not what it is. You're just seeing the outward appearance of it. It is supported by a continental landmass, and that is what flat earthers are in total denial even exists. And so, I do my presentations at conferences, and one of the things I try to do is to dispel myths and what else people have as far as thinking about Antarctica. And one of them is, oh, you can't go there. It's impossible. Well, you can go there. I did go there. And as I said, you can see the pictures right on my cell phone. And it's an incredible place. I think the reason it is in this category of such deep mystery is kind of like, let's say, the Cydonia region in Mars, where there's these pyramids and platforms in an old city. None of us have ever been there. We've just seen images of it. It's quite intriguing, but you can't really say firsthand that you've been there. And so very few people have ever been to Antarctica. I was reading in the Lonely Planet Antarctica book. Yeah, there's a 256-page travel guide just to Antarctica. And it told us that every year there's only 300,000 people that make it down to Antarctica, mostly in the summer months, which is our winter, basically November until March. And so if you divide 300,000 people and multiply it by 20 or 30 years, however many generations go down there and still alive, divide it by 8 billion people, you have basically 0.0001% of the human population will ever go down there. So it's kind of like the Cydonia region, that there's just so much misinterpretation and misunderstandings about what's really going on down there. And so that's why I like to do my presentation at conferences and talk about it in interviews like the Leak Project, just to dispel that misinformation.
Now, you took a cruise to Antarctica.
Sailboat. Cruise is lightweight, Rex.
It was a cruise. That's how they sold it. Oh, it's going to be a first-class cruise. You're going to love it. You're like puking out the. Okay, so tell us about this incredible experience that you took out there.
So it was 5 years ago. In fact, that was right around the first time I met you at Arizona at the conference. And so Emily Infinity and myself, my partner at the time, we were planning to go down to South America. And then I bought a Ford Expedition. It was fully outfitted for car camping and take showers, had a refrigerator and stove and everything, and a bed in the back. So that was perfect. Drove up to all the way up. I got it in Santiago, Chile, drove all the way up the coastline, which is amazing, in Chile, up to Peru, joined a tour. I was a guest speaker with Nassim Harriman and Brian Forrester, Adam Apala, and 150 other people on this tour. after that was over, then it was the long drive all the way down through Argentina, which is the 8th largest country in the world. And it's hundreds of miles to get to the down to the southern tip and the southernmost city, which is Ushuaia. And that's where 90% of all the boat traffic for our Antarctica leaves from, including the cruise ships. And so we did consider going on a cruise ship, but they only go for, it only takes 2 days to cross the Drake, which is good. It took us 4 days on a sailboat, but they only get 5 full days in Antarctica on a cruise, where we got 15 full days. And then it took us 6 days to sail back because we were tacting against the wind and we wanted to go see Cape Horn at the very bottom tip of South America. And then we got back and had a farewell party with our crew. And we're still all friends on Facebook. And myself and the 2 Americans I was with, we all reminisce about our time down on the frozen continent every time we see each other.
Where did you go in Antarctica and where did you step foot?
So just a little quick geography. You know how South America sticks way, way down, so far down. There's no other landmass that far low, not South Africa, not New Zealand, not Australia. In fact, there's a Trivial Pursuit question that if you were to leave Ushuaia, Argentina, and go due west, where would you end up? You would end up in Chile on the Terra del Fuego side, right there. So that's where we left from, just about where that bottom line, the cross, right about there is Ushuaia. Keep going in, and it'll show it. There it is. That's called the Beagle Channel. That was first charted with Charles Darwin on the Beagle ship. And we're going through the Beagle on the first day, and there's dolphins swimming next to our ship, and we see penguins swimming around. And I said to Emily, "Oh, this is going to be great, a little pleasure cruise." Then we made that turn on the Drake Passage, and everything changed. The Drake Passage is notoriously one of the roughest seas of the world, and it wasn't long before I was throwing up for 3 days. I lost about 25 pounds on that trip. I call it the Drake Passage crash diet. But our first destination were those islands right there. Yep, King George Island, the one to the right. And we went to, the one below that. First stop was, even the bigger island, just the bottom left. King George Island, and blow up Machu Picchu base. That's the Peruvian base. Go down a little bit and then over, and you'll see Arktowski. And we were with the crew that, and the captain and co-captain, just a little bit over in the bay to the left, and you'll see Arktowski. It was a Polish base, so we came with fresh fruit and supplies. It's right about where your cursor is. I don't know why it's not highlighting up right there on one of those points. And we were invited to come in and take a shower and use the internet to tell everybody we made it here alive, and had a couple dinners with them. And they took us on a tour right around here. We went walking to see some penguin colonies. We went up to see a glacier, and that is, Admiralty Bay, King George Island. So our boat was anchored right out there at bay, and this is the first place we stepped ashore, terra firma. Gosh, is that a UFO flying in one of those scenes? This is
UFO
a tiny little, okay. This is a tiny little American outpost. They're studying a penguin colony there. We didn't meet those guys, but I think there were 2 or 3 that would live there. Arktowski is right around that corner there. If you jump back out or you want to go up. And so it was so great to finally to be on land and to spend a day at the Arktowski base and 2 nights. And then we were able to, I think this is that little American outpost. It's not even considered a base. It's so small, just a little seasonal penguin observation platform. And then we got back on our boat and we sailed around Admiralty Bay, and then we started off, and every day was a new adventure. Fortunately, never got seasick again. And once we were on those channels in the Bransford Strait, it was pretty smooth sailing. There wasn't the big waves anymore. And then it was just going to other research stations, checking out penguin colonies, whales swimming under our boats and stuff. I mean, it was just incredible, kind of like the landscape behind you, otherworldly, frozen planet. And there's Arktowski. And the good folks there were kind enough to invite us in for 2 dinners. And we also were there for a night of playing music and hanging out with them. And that's the Machu Picchu base. That's the Peruvian base. I think it's across the bay is Arktowski, or maybe around the corner there. A little bit lower. Let's see. There's Arktowski. Now you found it. Yep, there it is. First place we set foot. And then the night we were playing some music, they came out with a big ice bucket of blue ice. And they said, well, we're going to use this. We're going to make you guys some mixed drinks. Would you like a whiskey and Coke or whatever, gin and tonic or some kind of mixed drink? I said, yeah, sure. They put the blue ice into the glass and then poured, and it started popping like popcorn. It's just all these weird little things you pick up when you're down there. So then we would go to one of the glacier walls that had the blue ice. The blue ice is really, really old, and the popping sound was when the little air bubbles that are in there from being compressed melt. So we would collect our own blue ice and then have them for our own cocktail hours after that.
Talk about an opportunity. That's really cool. I wonder what kind of I wonder what else is out there. Did you get a chance to did you see anything that kind of, or that wasn't normal out there?
Well, that was my whole goal going down there. I think I'm the only researcher in this field that went down there with the sole express purpose of investigating what we hear going on down there. Paranormal hotspots, UFO activity, to antediluvian civilization with pyramids poking through the ice, or these 3 massive motherships called nicknamed Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria by our intelligence agencies, known since the 1970s. And now with certain parts of Antarctica that are melting really rapidly, these ships are becoming more exposed. But here's the paradox. Right before I went down there, NASA released a map, a heat map of Antarctica that showed in red areas that were increasing in heat and melting of ice. But other portions of Antarctica in blue were actually colder and increasing ice level. And that's why if Antarctica were ever to slide off the continental landmass, it would just be like putting a bunch of ice cubes in an already filled up glass. It would overflow and then inundate all of our coastal communities. But it hasn't done that. And part of this reason why is Mother Nature, in her infinite wisdom, is able to balance out the hot zones and the cold zones and keeps the ocean levels from rising. Because we live on an ocean planet. 71% of the surface of this planet is covered in water. So if the Antarctica ice sheet or the Greenland ice sheet, or the third largest is a Patagonian ice sheet, were ever to fully melt, then it would raise the ice sea levels. But it hasn't done that yet. So thankfully, we still have Miami Beach and Santa Cruz, California, and all these coastal communities that have not shown any sea level rise, anything more than, say, a millimeter.
Well, yeah, and I've got family right on the ocean in the Northwest, and they do cruises every year to Alaska. And and my mom was telling me that 20 years ago, the glaciers out there were far more substantial than they are now. So there is absolutely certain areas that are dealing with, like you said, that this disappearing sea ice. but it's going somewhere because Florida still seems to be just fine. And I saw this coastal marking from a Knights Templar, I think, from the 1200s or the 1300s. Maybe it was a Viking thing or something, but it was marked right on the coast on this rock, and there was like an emoji about it, like LOL, because it was supposed to be underwater by now. We were all supposed to live in one place in the world because everything was supposed to be flooded, but we're not. We're still here. We're spending $12 for coffees at $12 now. Anyway, I'm digressing. But so you're out there, you're looking for stuff, and I mean, you've only got a limited time. Even though it's summer out there, what's the temperature like while you're out there?
Well, it was definitely winter conditions most days. There were 2 days when the sun came out, and we even did the polar plunge. First time, just stripped down naked, jumped in the ocean amid the penguins and icebergs. It was cold as heck, but came out, wasn't shivering, and just air dried off. And then did it again when we got to the Vernansky Ukrainian base, which was donated to Ukraine by the Brits. And it's the southernmost bar in the world called the Faraday Bar, named after the British inventor of the Faraday cage. And the Ukrainians bought it for 1 silver troy ounce pound, basically donated to the Ukrainians about 20 years ago. Because part of the Antarctica Treaty is if you do pull out of a base, you have to take everything with you, down to the foundation, and the studs and everything has to go. So it was easier and cheaper for the Brits just to give that base over to the Ukrainians, who were still there for what I know. And they were super friendly. Gosh, they were the most hospitable of them all, apart from the Poles, because I was on a ship with 11 Poles and 3 Americans. But the Ukrainians were great. They let us use their sauna, and then they had a ladder that went down to do a cold plunge. We did that 2 times, and got to have a meal with them. And then there was another part of the base that wasn't used anymore. It was just part of Operation Tamerlan when the Brits were spying on the Nazis during World War II. And this other base is just a museum. It's not even locked. You just had to walk over a snowfield, open the door, and it's like walking back into the 1940s. Everything is still on the shelves, the radio room, cans of food and stuff. It was just really amazing. So it was kind of the historical parts of the trip that really made it. But I didn't find out anything I went down there to find. Part of that is because I was just in this northern tip of the Palmer Peninsula, where a lot of this stuff is much farther afield, such as the pyramid poking through the ice in the Ellsworth Range is hundreds of miles away. And of course, South Pole is over 1,000 miles away. And the Nazi New Schwabenland claim is also about 1,500 miles away. So the distances are very vast in Antarctica. It's a huge continent, 5th largest continent in the world. And everything needs to be brought in, shipped in. If you're going to fly, you even have to leave fuel depots ahead of your trip. So when the plane can land and refuel out in the field, there's just no way to do that other than to leave your own supplies ahead of time. So the just planning a trip down there, the whole logistics of doing a larger trip like this is a real mind meld to try to organize. So there are companies, logistic companies, that do just that, but it's expensive. And that is one of the barriers to entry, apart from the Drake Passage. But people can fly in as well. And a lot of millionaires or billionaires who have climbed all the tallest mountains of the world, Kilimanjaro, Africa, Everest in Asia, Mount McKinley in North America, they'll go to Antarctica to round out the 7 continents and climb Vincent Massif, which isn't a very tall mountain. It's about 14.5, about as tall as Pikes Peak out by you. But being that it's so far afield, it's very challenging just to get there.
I just wonder why there aren't more people going out to that location where that alleged pyramid is poking out of the ice. Because to me, it looks like a freaking pyramid. I mean, I would say I'm 70, 75%. That's a pyramid. And that's a lot. Like I'm being as conservative as possible. I'm trying to be as skeptical as possible. And it looks like a pyramid. So why aren't there more photographs? Why aren't there millionaires going out there and billionaires going out there and taking photos and launching them online? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, or more importantly, why aren't a group of scientists going there and doing tests?
Thank
Uh,
you. Thank you very much. That's a good
this
point.
whole thing could be basically put to rest in one day if somebody went there, climbed it, or took some samples or videos of it. Now, I'll tell you, the people that I showed these pictures to, this logistic group that does Antarctica trips, they called them nun attacks. They just said it's an attractive mountain poking out under the ice. But I said, have you ever landed there? Have you ever gone to investigate? No, we just fly over it and we call it a nun attack. So I think the jury is out whether or not that is manufactured with intelligent hands or if it is just a four-sided pyramidal mountain poking through the ice.
Maybe I need to cut it down to 60%. It looks like a pyramid, man. I'm saying I would love to go out there. And Dr. Richard Allen Miller, I'm sure
Yep.
the great doctor. He was on the podcast a few months ago talking about many years ago, like 40 something years ago, he was flown out to some base. And then they went to another location in Antarctica. There was this massive underground base. He said it was several hundred feet up. And he said there was one spot that was so deep, they didn't even know how far down it went. And I thought, wow, man, this is amazing. Did you ever hear about that or what he's referring to?
I've seen your interviews with him. They're great. I can't pinpoint where exactly he was talking about, and I'm very interested in trying to get the GPS coordinates or any kind of other information because I've been able to locate the location of 6 different under ice bases. So there's a big distinguishing point to be made here. Antarctica on the polar plateau over East Antarctica is 2 miles, sometimes 2.5 miles thick of just ice. And Antarctica is also the most volcanically active continent in the world. There are 93 active volcanoes in Antarctica. So the propensity of creating under ice domes through geothermal activity and warming is not only a possibility, it's a reality. And they've done scans of the area and found these massive domes, including the biggest one over Lake Vostok, which is a freshwater lake in East Antarctica. It's about the size of Lake Ontario. It's one of the top 10 largest freshwater lakes in the world that nobody ever knows about, but it's covered with 2 miles of ice and then this dome over the top of it. And that lake never freezes. So it must be getting heated with geothermal activity.
So a lot of these areas that people speculate could be underground bases are most likely naturally formed from the volcanoes underneath. Yeah, 93 they said. They discovered those like around 2017. I remember that paper. That was fascinating.
Yeah, and 2 have been added since I was down there. It was when I wrote my presentation on the sailboat ride back, it was 91. Now it's up to 93. So just shows that new discoveries are constantly coming out of Antarctica. And as far as the underground bases, well, we should call them under ice bases. In our country, we have the deep underground military bases, the DUMBs. Those are clearly under the surface of land. But these could be just under the ice. And ice is much easier to move around or melt than soil or rock is. So it's a pretty good chance that there are a number of these under ice bases. Now, the question is, are they ours or are they theirs? Because there's also rumors that some of them are ET bases and old legacy bases that have been around for quite a long time.
Now, well, let's go back to the weather conditions out there because I just want people to know how extreme the weather is. Even though you're out there and there's winter conditions, the further inland you go, the more extreme it gets. Doesn't it get so cold that you have to be completely covered or it will essentially freeze your skin within a matter of seconds?
In the winter, for sure. Yeah, you could die of hypothermia within a matter of minutes. or frostbite. But in the summer, it's kind of a different story. It would just be the same if you went up to northern Alaska. Yeah, most days it's pretty cold. It rains and snows. But some days the sun comes out and it's about 50 or 60 degrees. In fact, we were on the deck of our boat one day and we were just sitting there in our bathing suit getting a suntan. So that's another misconception, that Antarctica is always freezing cold. Some days we're actually pretty nice.
But it would be more extreme the further inland you go, wouldn't it?
Well, yes, but again, in the winter, it's nasty everywhere. Um, but right near the coastline, it is less severe. Just like I grew up in Chicago, every summer it would be cooler by the lake because of the wind flow, and even the heat of the lake is always cold, so it cools down the air in those coastal communities on the Great Lakes. But in the winter, it's colder because those northern winds come down from Canada, and that's why they call it the Windy City. It's just so cold when those winds come in. Similarly, if you're in a snowstorm in Antarctica in the middle of winter, or even in the spring or fall, it could be very, very dangerous. We got snowed on the boat when we were in Antarctica. In fact, one of our duties, apart from pushing away the little icebergs with a pole, was shoveling off the deck of the boat one day.
I can just imagine to explore out there and to really explore, especially going deep in. Like you said, you got to get supplies, you got to get fuel, you got to have resources there before you get there. It's got to be such, it's kind of like Sidonia Mars, because it is so just to get there, and then the conditions. So for those out there that are kind of speculating and thinking in their minds, like, now you know, just the intensity out there, and it's so massive and it's so remote. There's got to be some stuff out there from like previous civilizations, I would suspect, maybe even before the Younger Dryas event. The question is most of that ice after or before the Younger Dryas event? And I think the scientific community would say overall that it was way before, like millions and millions of years old. So that would kind of change the overall idea of what a culture and what a civilization would be like a million years ago versus 15,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago. But did you ask any of the people out there, like if they that live out there at the bases or spend time out there at the bases, if they've seen anything weird or talked?
Oh yeah, that was my whole line of reasoning. Every one of the bases that we went to, and went to 6 different bases. Have you heard of any paranormal activity, UFO sightings? Have you heard of any excavations or antediluvian civilizations? Do you know about these 3 massive motherships? That's all I wanted to try to find out. But in most cases, I did not hear any kind of affirmation. The only exception was on one of the Argentinian bases. They said that there was a sighting at another one of the bases just a few weeks prior of some UFO and orb activity. And they were talking about it inter-base banter among themselves. And we got the guy to tell us about it. And we also found out that there's no-fly zones in Antarctica, including the biggest one right near the South Pole. Now, the cover story is, well, they're doing these very sensitive weather monitoring tests, and the fumes from a plane would throw things off. But there are no planes really flying there. Only in the summer months, occasionally you'll have a plane set down, and they can't go over this one area, which is even beyond where they're doing the ice cube experiments. And that's where I think the hole in the ice is that Admiral Byrd discovered on his first flyover of the South Pole in the 1920s. And then he went back at the beginning of Operation High Jump, according to his diary, that's still a published work, that he flew down into it. And that's when he met some people down there that had Nazi insignia on UFOs that he called Flugerods, and then was asked to meet with a figure called the Master in the domain of the Ariani. So that would be pretty intriguing to get some confirmation that under ice civilization exists. It would kind of be like those pyramids behind you, Rex. Maybe we get some confirmation of Atlantis or high civilization, maybe that they're still existing down there under the ice today.
We need to dive deep into that because, no pun intended, folks. Because, man, that is weird. Like, no fly zone in the middle of freaking nowhere. It's in the middle of nowhere. Who's going to stop? Like, who's going to come out? Are there going to be like some F-22s? Like, get that little Cessna out of here. You're going to need a pretty nice aircraft just to get there. But my question is, how are they going to stop you? Why? What do you think about that?
Well, they did stop commercial flights going there. I don't know if you remember in the 1970s, they just started doing flights out of New Zealand in the large 747 type planes, and they're big enough to be able to fly from Christchurch, New Zealand, go fly over Mount Erebus near the McMurdo base, and then fly back. Well, just a couple flights into this program, one of those planes crashed on the slopes of Mount Erebus. The wreckage is still there, but a great loss of life. And so then they canceled all commercial flights to go there. So the only way to fly in is these big cargo planes, these military planes that are bringing in supplies, but also can bring in personnel. And a lot of flat earthers will say, you can't fly across the continent, but it's not because we don't have a plane that's able to do that. And indeed, there are flights that will go to the South Pole. In fact, this Antarctic Logistic Expedition Group, they'll occasionally take a group out to the South Pole. Of course, they can't go over the no-fly zone. They got to come in low and land at the base. But most of the supplies are moved to the South Pole base from McMurdo using snowcats. And they put the long chain of trailers behind it, and they'll just drive them out that way. And those things, it's like at a ski resort, if you've ever seen one in operation, they're just blowing black smoke out of there. So they're so sensitive about pollution, they haven't done anything about the snowcats that bring in the supplies. But some of the whistleblowers who have seen the hole in the ice, Rex, and it's not just going on Admiral Byrd's testimony, but Brian S., who gave the best description to Linda Moulton Howe in several interviews, they defied orders because it was an emergency evacuation. Somebody's life was in danger, and they flew over the no-fly zone, and lo and behold, there is this massive hole in the ice that's several miles long and had a cat track that led from the South Pole station. It's called Amundsen Scott South Pole Research Station. The cat track went out to the hole, and it went down. It corkscrewed down the hole. And so it was interesting when all the celebrities, politicians, and royal families were going out there in 2016, 2017. Prince Harry went there with some of his army buddies, but he went to the South Pole, and they went cross-country skiing for a whole week. Well, the cover story is it's the big polar plateau. There's nothing out there. It's just flat ice. Why would you spend a whole week down there unless they got permission to go out and see the hole? In which case, they could have skied down that corkscrew and then cross-country skied back up, put some skins on their skis, and come back up. So that is what most of us in the research field call the Illuminati Disneyland. That and some of these massive crafts under the ice. And I've been able to pinpoint at least one of them, which is the Kohnen base, which is run by the Germans. Here's the other thing, Rex. When I was looking at maps, I'm poring over maps before my trip. I get a map of the Cold War era with some of the research bases there in the early 1980s. And West Germany, the flag for West Germany was still on two of the bases in the New Schwabenland claimed area. The Germans never left. In fact, they're still there to this day. And one of those bases, a seasonal base out on the polar plateau called the Kohnen base, is where in 2013 on Google Earth, they were doing, and you could see an excavation that was taking place. There was a runway strip, there were snowmobile tracks, there was a big area where they're bringing out something like orange rusted material on the surface, because you never see orange color out there. But then they covered it up with like a circus tent, and if you see it today, it's just a bunch of poles covering this big grill of a craft. And if we could share the screen, I'd show you some of those pictures.
Yeah, 100%.
Let me see if I can access that.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention, please?
I will just pull it right on out of my presentation. Actually, I'll show you. This is an exclusive
Oh, thank you.
for Leak Project people only. This is going to be my new presentation. And I have some new images. Well, there's the three pyramids. These are presumably another one of the big crafts under the ice.
Can you like we're just looking at the real small image of it because you're kind of, and you know who else was out there? The guy that what's the gentleman's name that created the Shahulu?
Shahulu?
Yeah, the guy who's the writer of the original Shahulu fiction, maybe nonfiction. I don't know, but what's his name? Lovecraft.
Oh yeah,
There's a picture of Lovecraft out there, and he's holding this massive tablet that looks like it's ancient. It's got this weird octopus-looking thing on it, and it's from the early 1900s or something. It's really weird.
So this is that grill-like craft that was uncovered in 2013. This is an image from Google Earth. And the Farsight Institute went and researched this. They sent their remote viewers there. And indeed, what they found was a whole bunch of what looked like an ancient ship. It was all decrepit and no longer in service, but it was something that was built for giants. They said it was just massive how big it was. I'm trying to find the bigger overlay. Here's some of the Operation High Jump images with the UFO craft. But I want to find the Kohnen base so you can see what it looks like. That's the big picture of it. That might be it. Oh, this is another one that I've recently found. This could be one of the motherships. Look at that. Mother Nature does not create this kind of perfect symmetry. That is
it's just so small on the screen that I can barely.
Is it?
Yeah, it's just showing like a ½ inch by 3/4 of an inch on the screen because it's showing all your other stuff to the left of it. It's like showing the screen that you've got the birds Antarctica clicked, and then you've got the machine under the ice clicked, and then
okay.
So if you just clicked on the can you just share the screen of the picture itself possibly when you do the screen share?
Yeah, how to do that though?
Oh, well, I think you just do it when you did screen share, you're sharing the window that's showing all of this. And I think you can share the image itself.
Okay. I am just trying to find the Kohnen base overview. So much artifacts. Oh, here's our when we were sunbathing on the.
Is that Emily in the back?
That was Emily Infinity. Yeah, we all just met a couple months right before this. Project High Jump. That's going to be a big part of and I'm doing another book on this too called The Mysteries of Antarctica or Esoteric Antarctica. I'm not sure what the title is going to be yet, but also a conference presentation with all this new material, which is an exclusive on Leak Project a year before it comes out.
I like Esoteric Antarctica. That sounds cool.
You like that? That does sound kind of cool, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right. There's another exclusive.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I could keep going through this, but
well, no, that's all right. Yeah, I appreciate you kind of giving us a teaser here on some of these images, and then people you can probably find a lot of these if they dive deep, and then you can you could probably find some of them on Google and then make it bigger if you're going to complain about. I just can already read the comment section. I already know what they're going to say, so I'm stopping you right now before you leave that comment. We're doing our best.
Thanks,
Rex. No, thank you. This is cool. So yeah,
Did we want to talk about China Lakes? Some of
please,
those
please.
Google
I
Earth.
was hoping you were going to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Did you have those images, or should I try to bring them up? You might have an easier time showing them on
Let me see. Let me see
video
what I can find
that I
here.
sent you.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull this up.
Yeah, I see what was going on. Okay, here is the Kohnen
There
base
we go.
in its
There.
entirety. So now you can
Wow.
see the airstrip with the snowmobile track and that orange like substance. That must be the door going down into it.
Yeah.
And then some footpaths around it and another little bulging protrusion where there could be another part of this giant craft. And that's what the remote viewers at Farsight Institute said was this massive machine under the ice and this big grill um,
Yeah.
that, yeah, has some kind of weird uh, built for giants kind of thing. Now, if you were to go to Google Earth right now, let's see if I can share this one too. You would find this. And those are the coordinates if anyone wants to do some extra credit homework.
There we go.
Yeah, Kohnen maps. If anybody wants to go there, here are the GPS coordinates. This is the Kohnen base. And what you'll find now is I think of it like a circus tent or some kind of way that they covered up that machine grill. And this is what you'll find on Google Earth now. Again, nothing natural about this at all. And it's at the exact coordinates where that big grill of a machine was.
Weird.
Yeah, it's totally weird.
Huh. Man, I
Yeah.
want to go out there. That's awesome. Antarctica is like the Wild West.
Yeah, it is. And I should also tell you, Rex, that I have a venture capital company called VC Cross who has contacted me 6 months ago, and they say, "Hey, we've seen your presentation. We'd love to go out there, and we're going to start to raise some funds." So we're looking to raise $10 million and go out there with the film crew. And certainly going to this Kohnen base would be on the itinerary, as well as to go to New Schwabenland. And I could show you a map of New Schwabenland, which is basically the map was created by the Nazis in World War II, and there's a location there called the Schumacher Sea Groupie, which in German means the Schumacher was the name of the pilot that landed a boat on there, and Sea Groupie is a grouping of lakes. So here is the map. So you can see here, this is the map drawn by the Germans during the 1938, 1939 land claim of New Schwabenland. This location of Antarctica is directly below South Africa. So if I zoom in to this area here, now you can see the Schumacher scene groupie. See that right here? Going a little further. These
Yeah.
are all the ponds that never freeze over. And they have hills around them in red. And those hills are where the Germans went and set up base 211. So I would like to go out to the Schumacher scene groupie and see if we could do some investigation and maybe find some evidence for that base 211. Because this is where it's at, right here in New Schwabenland, the Deutsche Antarctic Expedition. So, I love to do Google Earth explorations.
Oh
And
yeah.
if you can play that little video first, and then we'll go to the screenshots I got. So I did confirm that this really does exist on the China Lakes military base, which is down in the northern Mojave Desert with Las Vegas and Death Valley to the east and the southern Sierra Nevada mountains to the west. And that's where China Lakes, it's a naval testing range for the Navy. Now, what is the Navy doing way out in the middle of the Mojave Desert? Well, if we could play that video, you'll see, because somebody was searching around, basically, looking around, and then he zooms in on this. And that's water. That's a deep well. And then there's a second one there that got plugged up and is no longer in use. But look at that. That's a boat right there. So, and a ramp going down into this deep well at the China Lakes Naval Air Weapons Station. So there's also a belief that the cave that was discovered off of Malibu, California at Point Mugu, giant, massive cave that must have been there for at least since the last ice age, because how do you build a megalithic cave underwater? That there are subway passages that go way out into the Mojave Desert, including this place being some kind of area where a submarine could surface or submersibles could be brought in down that little ramp.
Real quick, and then we're going to get back to the podcast. Check us out over on Patreon. Why? Because I have hundreds of hours of exclusive content, ad-free, uncensored, unedited, stuff that we can only talk about on Patreon, beyond the cutting edge, and you'll get access to it for only $1 a month. And if there's an interview that you want me to do, a guest that you want me to get on the show, or a topic that you want me to discuss, if you leave a comment over on Patreon, I'll do my best to get that guest on the podcast or that subject. And I'll even do my best to get back to you here on YouTube. And your contributions greatly help Leak Project. So check us out over on Patreon, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel here and hit the bell for all notifications, and check back daily for new podcasts, because we upload podcasts pretty much every single day. And has anyone told you today that you're awesome? Because you are.
Where can we find you next, Brad?
Well, go to bradolsen.com. You'll find all the projects I'm working on, and as well as my conference schedule. Got 3 more in October in Sedona area and Vegas. And also next year I have a bunch of Brad Olsen conferences right on the top there. Click on that link that I got coming up. And several that I'm booking into next year. And asked back to Disclosure Fest, which they had to cancel because of a fire on summer solstice. They're going to do that one again. And I'll go back to Contact in the Desert. That was a great event this year. And Cosmic Awakening will be one in coming up in Sedona, as well as Sedona MUFON. And then the Biomed Expo and Alien events will be in Las Vegas in October. So those are my last 3 of the year, and then getting booked into 2025 with some more conferences. And so if you're interested in my books, cccpublishing.com, and it's myself and other authors like Michael Jaco, Laura Eisenhower's new book just came out, and several other authors. If people were ordering any of my books from the Esoteric series or my travel books, then I can sign copies for people. It's the only way outside of conferences to get a signed copy at cccpublishing.com. And there it is. There's our website. And if you scroll down, you will see my Beyond Esoteric and others. So thanks for having me on, Rex. It's always a pleasure talking to you and get caught up. So much weirdness in the world that we find, and the 6 months or so between our talks. So it's great to talk to you again and get caught up on all this.
Yeah, right on, Brad. Thank you so much, and keep being the change the world needs to see.
You betcha.
Right on. Thanks, everybody. Have a beautiful day.
You're sending, you know you've been cutting, you know I'm ascending. I'm one of them winning. I'm one of them winning. Go take a look at the pen that I'm making my money like it's never ending. I took all my losses, I roll with the bosses, I know what they cost and I'm so independent. Go take a look at the pen that I'm making my money like it's never ending. I took all my losses, I roll with the bosses, I know what they cost and I'm so independent.